Okay, we are recording. So, Adam Clague, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast and welcome everyone that is going to watch this episode. This is episode 130 of A Conversation About Art. So, Adam, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell our future listeners and viewers who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Gabriela, for having me on. I'm intrigued about your podcast and the different philosophical questions that you ask. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking me. So my name is Adam Clague, and I've been a full-time painter now for about 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a little bit less. And so basically, as a kid, I always loved drawing and using colored pencils. I loved cartoons and comic heroes and stuff like that. And then eventually got into more realistic stuff. And through different influences like Artist Magazine and things like that, where I saw what was possible, children's illustrators and things, just to see what was possible with art and to see people who are making a living at it, or I presume they were making a living at it through Artist Magazine, then that sort of charted my course. I knew I wanted to be, an artist when I grew up. And so I went to a high school art camp, which was at my alma mater, which is Pensacola Christian College in Florida.
Okay.
And they had different art camps in the summer or different camps in the summer for their different programs. So you could go check it out as a high schooler and see if you might want to sign up for their program. So naturally, I did the art camp and really loved it. And I realized that this is a place that's actually going to give me the foundations and the fundamentals that I need to do the type of art that I want to do, which was the representational painting. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to be at the time. So went to the art camp, and then that kind of, took me to the next step, enrolling in the art program there at PCC, and stayed there for 7 years. And I got my master's. That's where I met my wife, Andrea, who's also an artist, and graduated in 2012 with our masters. And then there was some time before we got married. That's a story in and of itself. And then moved to Kansas City, Missouri, or that area, and that's where we live now. So we've both been full-time painters that whole time since we've been married, except for that in the last 7 years, Andrea's put her art on the back burner because she wanted to be a mom. So we have two great kids that are amazing. Gideon is 7 and Jaron is 3. So that's our family and our story in a nutshell.
Okay. I love this. I love how, I love like the integration of the significant other, just like into the whole. And all right, maybe that's not part of this. I just think it's cool. Okay. So yeah, I'm just curious about, okay, so now I'm curious about how you see it. I mean, I get the impression based on what you went over just now that you had an interest in specifically in representational art. So did you ever have any like a short phase or a stint at all where you wanted to do abstract or just something that wasn't representational by any chance?
No, really my only outlet for that type of thing is just that I love impressionism. And so there's a lot of just the expression of putting down the paint in interesting ways. So I'm really interested in that. But before I was interested in representational painting, it was still, I guess you'd say representational, but I was into cartoons and comics and things like that, where I guess you'd call that representational, but a lot more stylized,
Yeah, yeah.
And so I've always appreciated that type of art as well. But yeah, that's sort of been my my sweet spot there.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of because when I was younger, also I also copied the drawings from comics that I liked, and it's definitely a conduit into representation. But I guess I just wonder because I mean I have tried abstract type or things that abstract work, just because when I went to undergrad, the teacher was like, he just put some music on, and then he was like, okay, just paint what you hear. And I was
Okay.
like, and and I was like, I what? Um,
Paint what I hear, but
uh,
yeah. Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So he was like, oh yeah, the colors or whatever it is that you hear. So yes, paint this or draw it or whatever it may be. I mean, it's a very modern approach in a way for teaching art,
Sure.
um, which is not very helpful. But the thing is that I was frustrated with not having been able to do that, I guess. So I was like, all right, I kind of wanted to just see if I was capable of doing anything resembling abstract work. So I was like, all right, just don't draw anything in particular. And
Hmm.
then I was able to do that. And then I was like, all right, I mean, I guess okay, but you know, just representational. I went back to representational work very very quickly. It wasn't that long
Okay. Yeah.
that I was playing with the abstract stuff, and it's just um, I just think there's like a prevalence of representational work that even though, as I'm sure you know, about 100 years ago, with whole Dadaism and the whole thing, the whole modernist, postmodernist, whatever, um, we've attempted to do away with that, but it's coming back. So
Okay.
yeah, it's coming back with the ateliers. There's a lot of ateliers popping up, and lots of people are kind of just going back to figuration after like the public consciousness, I guess, kind of really
Oh,
derided it for a while. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was
yeah.
mixed up what you were saying. Yeah, you're saying now with the modern ateliers, we're getting back to the classical is what you're saying.
Yes.
Representing more. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. Yeah, so yeah, for sure, because for example, like when I went to grad school here, um there's a guy named Eric Fischel who in the 80s, I think, I don't remember whatever, very recently, he was just insinuating the figure in his work, like not explicitly, not rendering it or whatever, just blots of things that kind of looked like mostly figures, and he was getting made fun of a lot because that was
Huh.
still derided for whatever reason. So I guess, I mean, I'm being a little
Huh.
long-winded, but I wonder why
Yeah.
you think that we have this urgency almost, or just we always return to this depiction of the figure, representational or just reality in general, even though we're like surrounded by it.
Yeah, that's a big question. Yeah, that question wasn't on the list. I wasn't ready for that.
No.
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. So you're asking what is art and what is beauty. So once we get into that, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I really did try to come up with definitions that were as broad as I could make them.
Mm,
And I wanted them to include abstract art as well. Even
mm,
though that's not my thing, I try to include that. But you're asking why do we come back to the figure in particular? I I think I think the figure for me personally, here's my personal opinion and
yeah.
answer is that I think the figure is the most beautiful thing. So if we're getting into beauty, I mean, how can we help but be attracted to that thing, that aspect in creation and nature that's so beautiful, you know?
Yes.
So there's just certain things like that, no philosophy could draw us away from it. We're going to go back to it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's my quick answer on that one.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, and I mean, I agree with you, of course, because I love, I also love the depiction of the figure, and I love anatomical study, like, oh, the bones, the
Mhm.
muscles. But I mean, and not just like the depiction of the figure, but I also like physically, I like to do exercise, for example, which is also a way of kind of getting to know the human body in a way. It's just like the one that I got. But also, for example, like other things, the way that the body works, like as a product of nature, for example, in the sense that, like, oh, we eat, and the relationships that we have with other humans, whether romantic or friendships or this type of stuff. And so it's kind of like a layered sort of thing that, even though we're completely submerged in nature and in just being the human body, it's like we still need that additional layer of having it represented in works of art. So
Mhm.
that's like a lot of, I don't know, I just feel like a lot. So okay, let's then talk about. Let's just get into um, um, uh, discussing art and beauty. Okay. So is it
Yeah,
okay? Is it okay with you if I read the just like textually the definition that you wrote in the email?
oh, of course. Yeah,
For
yeah.
okay, okay. So for art, it's quote creation or performance with intended aesthetics end quote. Um,
Yeah.
so first of all, I think it's cool that you were able to make it that short. Both of them really, and like you said, making it broad and also I still think meaningful. So um, I guess before I go on a long-winded thing that's going to end in a question, why don't you? I mean, all right, just give me a minute.
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
Um, I guess
It's a big topic. How do we dive in?
it is. Well, I mean, yeah, because it's just that. So usually, what I try to do is, if I can kind of paraphrase what somebody else has told me, or if I'm trying to understand a phrase or something, if I can paraphrase it or kind of like break down the phrase into the words that I have a kind of a maybe I'm not quite sure what the words mean or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
just it helps me understand further. So I think I particularly like the use of the word intended
Hmm.
in this description or definition of the word art so because intention means something done deliberately and
Yeah.
premeditated, meaning that you
Hmm.
had to think about it and plan it before doing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So so then I mean I like that as part of the artistic process of making something. Um because I think it also includes the creativity and problem solving and all of these things that are part of the artistic process.
Yeah.
So yeah, does that seem right? Does that seem right?
I think so. And you mentioned something really important there with the idea or the concept. And what I was finding is I mean, I did a lot of research into this, and I mean, I had art history in college, obviously, but you never remember any of that stuff, and so
Right.
I had to go back and take a close look at what different people believed in different movements and stuff. Not that it was an exhaustive study, but there was some movements. I think it was the Dada movement. I could be mistaken,
Hmm.
where the emphasis was on the intellect, like the intellectual part or the concept of art more so than the material manufacture of the
Right.
art. And my opinion is that any work of art is going to start with that concept. It's going to start with the idea. So that's definitely a necessary spark for the art. But in my opinion, in order for it to be called art, I think it can't stay in the mind. It can't stay in the
Right.
heart. It has to manifest itself outwardly through either a creation or a performance. So I specified those two. At first, it was just creation, but then I was like, oh, but what about like, acting or dancing and
Yes.
singing? And so it has to be, it could be either like making something or it could be a performance. But I do think that there needs to be some kind of outward manifestation of the idea. If it's just an idea, it might be a great idea, but I wouldn't call it art yet until it's created or performed. And then the thing about the intended aesthetics is like, okay, if you just because you create something or perform it doesn't mean that it's art. And the illustration I kept coming back to was a hardware store. I don't know why. I just kept going back to that in my mind. If you
Yeah.
walk into like a Home Depot, there's all kinds of like really useful items that you're going to use for your home project. Not all of them are beautiful or aesthetic. And so I started thinking about that, like take a door hinge, for example. Someone had the idea, they made it, and so they created it. Would I call that thing art? And I wouldn't call it art because, in my opinion, it just has a utilitarian function. There wasn't any aesthetics intended in it. That doesn't mean that it's bad.
Mm.
And we can even say that that engineer, like whoever it was that first invented a door hinge, we could even say that, wow, there was really an art to thinking through that and making it work. I
Mm.
mean, it's pretty genius, right?
Yeah.
So we can applaud that for sure, but I don't think it's art until there's some kind of aesthetic intent. And when I say aesthetics, what I mean is some kind of stimulation of the senses, some
Mm-hmm.
kind of stimulation of the senses. And so there are some door hinges I've seen that are, pretty ornate, and they actually have there's not only thought to function, but there's also some thought to form.
Mm.
And in my opinion, that's when the creation is starting to come into the realm of art. Again, I'm trying to come up with the broadest possible definition that
Yeah.
might include everything that I might call art. And so I want the art to be really high so that we have a high ideal to achieve to, but I also want it to be low enough that a child can achieve it.
Yeah. Sure.
So my definition of art, it doesn't mean that the art is good or bad, because that's a separate discussion of how to evaluate the art.
Sure.
But I'm just trying to come up with, like, what is it? What is it? And so that's what I landed on: creation or performance with intended aesthetics. So that was kind of my thought process there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That sounds really great, and I actually like the comparison with the hardware store because I mean we're surrounded by that type of just prosaic. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Just like daily, everyday objects. At home. How you have these doors behind you with the hinges, and you have like a table or whatever in your
Yeah,
home and your desk and this type of stuff, and they definitely have that so-called utilitarian vibe to them because they're not made in a way. So, I wonder where, like if you have a slider of
yeah,
like art and design, and like on the other side you have like the utilitarian types, like it's like where is it, that because for example, maybe about like around the time of the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, like towards the end, there was a movement called the aesthetics movement,
okay,
something like that, and it had something to do with kind of making beauty and art even more accessible, more than it already is, to everyone
mhm,
by making daily objects also artistic and beautiful. So then you
mhm,
kind of have something else that's derived from that, which is all of those incredible things that were made with Art Nouveau, where you have like the, I don't know, desks and lamps,
mhm.
with
Yeah,
all of the
yeah,
plant and insect motifs that are just like what the, and I mean that's the only one, but it's just like the first example that I can think of
yeah, yeah,
where where they had this, like to use the word that you used in your definition, very intentional um design, very intentional shapes
yeah.
that were very pleasing to the eye, and I've been thinking more recently, well maybe not that recently, but since kind of like my ideas have developed a little bit since starting the podcast, that things that are beautiful, not including works of art, but when you have an object that's really beautiful, you want to preserve it,
Yeah, yeah,
you
good
know
point. Mhm.
yeah, so then
Yeah,
that's
you
why
want
you
you
have
wanna capture those flowers before they wilt, for example, or capture that
yeah.
fleeting sunset, right?
Yeah, so then that's why
Yeah.
you have those museums, like the Met. You have the
Mhm.
area where they have all the like furniture type stuff, but it's so, you don't even want to touch it because it's like it's, and I mean the things are super sturdy, but the thing is that there's like this feeling of reverence almost because the object was so lovingly made, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
So actually, and I guess maybe this can be because I also want to like exercise my devil's advocate, quote unquote, sort of
Yeah.
muscle thinking, I
Yeah, of
guess.
course.
So it's because I kind of feel like the intention, the intended part would discard work that isn't good because I mean, I kind of think it would, because I I have the impression that if somebody is an amateur artist, for example,
Hmm.
they kind of don't have a choice at first, in a way, other than to make things that don't look good because you have to start somewhere,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah,
So I almost feel like the definition that you provided also hints at refinement and doing it well also, because if you're planning for it, I don't think an amateur plans for their work to look amateur. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think about that?
Well, you're bringing up great points. I wanted to, like I said, I wanted my definition to be as broad as possible, and I did want it to encompass what a child can do. Originally I was actually using the word beauty in my
In
definition of art. And
Right.
eventually I had to get it out of there because if beauty is required for it to be called art, then not how many people can make art then, but I use the word art very casually to describe. I have a binder of my our 7-year-old's drawings. We call it Gideon's art. I'm using the
Uh-huh.
word art to describe that.
Yeah,
Now,
sure.
and he creates amazing things for his age. Now, does that belong in a museum? No. So that's why I say the evaluation of the art, as far as good or bad, is kind of a separate thing. But I was trying to
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
encompass everything. So let me talk a little bit more about that, what I mean with the intended aesthetics. I was trying to think really hard of, like, when does it become art?
Mm,
And this is now getting into the area where it's like we're trying to draw a hard line, like where does it go over? And if people have a little different opinion on this, that's fine with me, but I'll give my opinion.
sure.
So just having kids and watching them begin to do creative things, that was my starting point for this aspect of the definition. So in the beginning, our 3-year-old, he takes crayons. He enjoys peeling the paper off of it. That's his favorite thing. But in the
Of the
beginning,
crayon?
huh?
Of
He,
peeling the paper off the crayon?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He does that. In fact, we just had like this appointment with a bank. We were doing something with our account, and they give crayons to the kids. And I didn't even notice he was sitting there at the banker's desks, and he's like peeling off the paper of their crayons. And I didn't even notice till the end. He has like this pile of paper, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, that. But the guy was cool. So anyway, to get back to it though, so in the beginning, I think he's picking colors that he likes, and it's almost like he's just trying to figure out how to use the crayon, like he's making scribbles and stuff. Again, not that abstract lines and shapes are bad, but for me, the point when I would call it art is when he's actually trying to. It doesn't have to be a representational thing, but sometimes it is. He's drawing a car and it's got wheels, and so he's drawing shapes for that. It could just be abstract shapes. So even if he's just drawing shapes that he likes or that he thinks looks good, that's what I'm talking about with intended aesthetics.
Mm,
So even at a very young age, if they intend to not just experiment with how to use the medium, but if they're trying to make something, then I would say that's starting to get into the realm of art.
mm,
It's hard to pinpoint it exactly where that would be, but that's that's where I think it starts, is the moment that you start to bring order out of chaos. When you start
mm-hmm.
bringing order out of chaos, even if and I don't want to disqualify abstract art here. So once again, it doesn't have to be representational, but some kind of shapes or something where you're bringing order out of the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think it begins.
Okay. No, the bringing the order out of chaos makes a lot of sense, and I think it's cool that hopefully you'll be able to see how that develops in your children's, as they grow and stuff, if they keep making images,
Yeah,
because kind of the same way that when you start a drawing, it's just a bunch of lines.
yeah,
In a way, that's kind of like a shorter version of the extended version of the kid starting when the kid is really young. They're just like making these lines and stuff, and then
yeah,
maybe they draw the car, and then maybe they draw the comics, and then
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's definitely it's cool that you're gonna get to see that happening. Um, it,
Yeah.
yeah,
See how that progresses. Yeah, who knows where it'll lead. And again, that doesn't, this says nothing as far as if the art is good or bad.
right.
But I was trying to include both the very general use of the word art to the very highest. So there's a huge range of quality and mastery within that. Like you said, it's a process. So
Yes. No, and I mean, I agree with you that it's very difficult, and really not just with art, but with other things, to try to make a crisp line of where something stops and something else begins. And my husband
yeah.
actually, because I mean, we've had this discussion, we've talked about the subject a bunch of times. It's like, oh, but then is that art? He'll be like, what is that art? What about that? And
Hmm.
what about that? And why? Or whatever, And I'll be like,
Yeah,
yes, no, and then I don't know. And
yeah.
so he says that, yeah, it really seems like the more you try to clearly mark where something stops and when it
Hmm.
becomes something, it's like it's kind of more difficult. It's like, okay, where does red stop and orange begin? It's like really difficult.
Yeah,
It can get
yeah.
really difficult because it's like, where is it?
Hmm.
So yeah, I completely understand. And I wasn't trying to be pushy about excluding bad art or something. Like,
Yeah.
I'm aware that good and bad art fall within the purview of art. Um, and that's fine, of course. And
Yeah.
that's just how it is. But there are definitely things that, like what you were saying earlier when you were talking about the hardware store, there's definitely things that are not art. And why they're not art, well, that's a whole other thing. I had a really good analog example, I guess, in a previous episode where my guest was like, yeah, there's the food that your grandma made for Christmas,
Yeah.
and you have Wendy's, right? So
Yeah.
one is good, one's the good art, and then the latter is the bad art.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then but there's still stuff that's definitely not food at all, you know?
But we call it food still, right? Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes, well, no,
Yeah.
no.
Oh.
No, because it's like, no, the pen is not food. Like, there's
Okay.
no, it's like, there's things that are actually not food. It's just that,
Hmm.
one of the reasons, or it kind of became one of the reasons, I guess, for which I started the podcast, is that I'm kind of done. I'm tired with, art is whatever you want it to be. That has stopped working for
Good,
me.
good. Thank you for being brave and stating that. I agree with you there.
Yeah, I was never very comfortable with it, but I thought I had to put up with it, and then more
Yeah.
recently I'm kind of giving myself permission to be like, no, that's not art.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it feels good to get to this point, and so I'm trying to kind of hone down a little bit. It's slowly coagulating, like, what it's just frustrating that there's this argument that supposedly the definition of art has changed throughout time, it's evolved or whatever, and that's why people think that anything and everything can be art. But
Right.
that doesn't work for me either. Like, I don't think it's necessarily changed. And I think it
Yeah.
has something to do with what I was ranting about earlier, about how us returning to figuration or representational work, be it landscapes or the figure, whatever, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I was just kind of typing down some of the things you were talking about. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that. And there is the thought that art can just be whatever you call art. So I'm thinking of Duchamp's The Fountain, the
Right.
urinal, and he he was one of those ones that emphasized the idea or the intellect
Mm.
more than the material process of it. And that one, uh, and maybe others too. I'm no, I don't have a comprehensive knowledge of his work. I'm familiar with the fountain because that one's famous, but
Right.
he's taking something that he didn't even create that. Like that was something that was mass produced and just signing his name on, or it wasn't even his name. It was like, it says R. Mutt on it. And he just wrote that on there and called it art. So just like you're saying, the idea that you can just call anything art. So that's why I like more of a definition where it's, no, it has to be a creation,
Yeah.
i.e. your own creation,
Yes.
or performance with intended aesthetics. Now you could argue, well, the urinal has some lyrical curves and lines to it, and okay, maybe the person who originally designed that was thinking of beauty or something, I don't know, but just writing your name on something that somebody else or a machine mass produced, that's not art in my book. No. So, and I liked your idea of how different philosophies have changed during the ages, but actually what art is does not change. So that, that's a very interesting thing. I think we'll probably get into that once we get into the topic of beauty.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I mean, I actually remember having thought many years ago, being like, I mean, I guess Duchamp, I guess, could kind of paint, so then that kind of reconciled me a little bit to the whole urinal thing, but then I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, no, I don't think so. And so it turns out that because your bringing order out of chaos reminded me of Dr. Jordan Peterson, because he
Oh,
uses these
okay.
terms a lot and everything, and not that he invented them, because he didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he has talked occasionally about this event with Marcel Duchamp, and it's like, it's obviously not wrong to ask what we're musing about here, which is, what is art?
Yeah.
And it's like, that is the question that I guess, maybe giving Duchamp the benefit of the doubt, that he's asking, if I sign this urinal, does it make it art? If I put it on a pedestal, is that why it's art?
Yeah.
And it turns out that when he submitted that work to that show, the other Dada people were pissed. They were like, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
like, and it's like, anything is art. That's what you guys said, so this is my submission. So then it's like, so then it's, at the same time, as much as I also disagree with the urinal, as just stamping the name art on it, the concept of art on it, challenging these people with that was still a good thing, in the sense that it's like, okay, I mean, if you're telling me that anything can be art, then you accept this urinal and that's it, because you said so. So then it's like, I just think it's like, or I like to think, at least, that it could have been like an accountability thing. It's like, you said this, so now this work of this will be accepted into the show. Something like that. A little bit roundabout, kind of backwards, but still.
Well, it kind of reveals maybe the logical end of that philosophy. Like, okay, if that's what you're going to believe, then this is the logical destination, perhaps.
Yes. Foreboding, in a way. Yes. It's like, it's gonna,
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because I definitely think that or maybe hope a little bit that it'll, maybe we'll start making really great stuff again. We're finally starting to make really great stuff again. So, okay, so I think that we can move on to beauty now. And I mean,
Okay.
I guess with, I guess you deliberately, as you said earlier, you left the use of the term beauty out of the definition of art.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to include both good and, ugly and beautiful art as well, because you thought that using the term beauty would exclude a lot of things. But that's also the other word that I looked up, because I mean, aesthetics is a maelstrom of just whatever. It seems to be a complicated term, but summarized according to Wikipedia, the first few phrases in Wikipedia, it seems to have something to do with studying the nature of beauty, the nature of taste, and the nature of art. Which it just,
nature, beauty, and art. Yeah, that's pretty. It's kind of vague. I was not. I'll admit, I did not really look up the definition of aesthetics, I was looking up some definitions of beauty, and aesthetics was sometimes used to describe beauty. I don't think that beauty is limited to aesthetics, actually, which I'll talk about. But I didn't actually look up the definition of aesthetics. So maybe it's possible my definition might be wrong, but I think of aesthetics meaning the stimulation of the five senses.
Okay. No, yeah. I mean, I wasn't trying to give you grief about the use of the term.
No, yeah,
it's
you're fine.
just that because I mean, when I first read the sentence, the definition, I was like, I mean, I think I understand. I mean, like with what you said, it's kind of like a collection of stylistic decisions, like again, intended, deliberate decisions when in the process of making something.
Yeah,
that will be pleasing to the eye and pleasing to the viewer. The viewer will want to spend time. So then that's where the simulation of the senses comes in, because the viewer will enjoy looking at that. So
yeah.
Okay. So then, I mean, I guess we can officially get into beauty now.
Okay.
Okay. So, for that, you wrote radiance and reflection of ultimate goodness. So, all right, just give me a minute. Okay, so I'm curious about the overlap between art and beauty, I guess, if we include this radiance and reflection of ultimate goodness. And why is it goodness specifically? What does that mean, goodness?
Okay. Yeah, so I think we need to define goodness, right? So, and by the way, this was beauty is I found a much higher, bigger topic than art, because art can be beautiful for sure, but there's other things that can be beautiful too. And so it was extremely difficult to come up with some kind of definition that would encompass everything that I believe to be beautiful. So in the end, I landed on, like you said, beauty is the radiance and reflection of ultimate goodness. So that ultimate goodness would kind of be the source of the beauty. And then anything reflecting that goodness would also be beautiful to a degree, although in dimmer fashion than the ultimate. And so I think that when we talk about goodness, I think we can talk about goodness on like three different levels. So at the bottom level, we have our tastes and our preferences. And I wanted to, this was the hardest thing, was to establish that I do believe in absolutes and standards and things like that, but I did want to allow for subjectivity in the process too. I don't think that we can just anything that an individual wants to call art should be called art. So I don't go that far, like we already talked about, but I wanted to allow for the fact that, you know, maybe my the flower that I think is most beautiful is a rose, maybe yours is a tulip, or maybe my favorite color is blue, you think the most beautiful color is red, I don't know. And no one can say that that's right or wrong. So there's definitely a level of subjectivity. And even in the evaluation of art, which I think can have some objective guidelines, there's still some subjectivity and room for tastes and preferences. So that's where I would, on that lowest level, a person can say that something is good or bad. As far as their tastes and preferences. Okay, and then the next tier up, the way I see it is whatever the standards or principles are that govern each art form. And those are more objective. There's still room for huge creativity and taste within those, but there are some objective guides that can help us in crafting our art. And so the only ones I can talk about with any authority are the ones from visual art, because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't talk about them with music, but the principles that govern visual art, the way I break it down, are the 5 fundamentals, and then you have composition on the other hand, that I sort of keep that separate. So the 5 fundamentals I break down as drawing or shape. That would involve proportion and perspective, but shape too. So that, and all of these apply to abstract art as well as representational. So I'm just saying visual art. The 5 fundamentals, the way I break them down, is drawing or shape, and then you have value, those darks and lights. Then you have edge, temperature, and color. So those are what I consider to be the 5 fundamentals of visual art. So some artists break them down, maybe a little differently, but that's pretty universal among people who are teaching representational painting, okay? And then on the other hand, I have composition. I kind of keep that separate just because I teach them separately. And the composition has to do with putting together as a simple definition. And it's got its own principles like placement and balance and things like that, value, pattern, line, that incorporate in. So that's how I break it down. And like I said, even within those 5 fundamentals, there, I kind of listed those in the order of how objective they are. So I feel like, especially for representational art, drawing is the thing that you've got to get your proportions right if you're doing a figure or a face, or else it's going to look weird. That's not going to apply as much for abstract art, but that one's pretty objective. But even with that, I think of like John Singer Sargent, who would capture his people so perfectly. And I'm thinking of one in particular. I can't remember which guy it was, but it was shown, a photograph of the sitter was shown side by side with his portrait. And you can tell that he exaggerated the features a little bit. And it was almost like a slight caricature. And that was so fascinating to me, because we think of Sargent as being, a representational painter and very accurate, not as much as the classical is. He's much more of an impressionist, but still, just to see him characterize it just a little bit. Have you ever seen an editorial caricature that looks more like the person than a photograph of the person?
Yes.
And so anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because even though I want to make it clear that even though I'm putting some objective standards into the mix here to help us evaluate art, there is still in fact, there's lots of room for artistic interpretation and artistic expression. So I hope that makes sense. A little bit of balance there. So that would be my middle level of having some objectivity. Or you're asking me to define goodness, so it's these 3 levels. Bottom level is the tastes and preferences. Middle level would be whatever principles govern that particular art form. So I just went through visual art. Maybe for music it would be like pitch and rhythm and harmony. I don't know what those would be, something like that, to help us evaluate if the art is good or not, and to help in the growth in that art. And then ultimate goodness is at the top. That's the top. That's the ultimate ideal, which I believe is actually the source of beauty. So just like the sun is a source of light and it reflects off of the moon, we have the ability, the capacity to reflect a higher ideal. I'm coming from a Christian standpoint, so I would define that as being God himself, as that source of ultimate goodness. And then since man and woman are created in God's image, we have the ability to reflect that goodness. So that's the idea of radiance and reflection of ultimate goodness. So that's the best that I could do there, trying to encompass both an objective ideal or even an absolute at the top, with some objectivity in the middle and subjectivity on that lower tier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that was great. That was helpful. Okay, so all right, so first of all, I like the breakdown, not just of the three levels that you were talking about, but also when you went into the middle one, the standards part, how you broke down what did you call them? The 5?
I call them the 5 fundamentals.
Yeah, the 5 fundamentals of visual art. But okay, so the first two, or I mean the two lower levels, standard and taste, those are kind of, some people would argue that they're opposites in a way, but the previous episode, and actually I'm really glad that you mentioned coming from a Christian standpoint, because I didn't want to like out you or something and directly ask you about that stuff. Because I mean, I
No,
don't
that's right.
know,
It's really impossible to talk about these things without also talking about your beliefs, so
yeah,
it's natural.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you would think so, and I mean, it's just that I've recently been, um, like deliberately seeking out people who are artists and also believe in the Christian God. I mean, I was raised Catholic as well. Anyway, the thing is that I've been looking for people like that specifically because I get the feeling, like, again, from having talked to a bunch of people in the podcast,
Yeah.
that there's something there. There's a connection there, and so I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand that. um,
Yes. Yes.
so the previous episode was with just directly before you.
Hmm.
He was also talking about this universality versus individuality, basically.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of examples of where it is physically present, not just present constantly, but embodied. And I mean, my example, if I say so myself, was just people. And the reason is the following: because if you take the figure, which is what we've been talking about it this whole time,
Yeah.
everybody has the same proportions, basically.
Hmm.
The human proportions, and I mean, I'm not talking necessarily about the Greek ones. I'm just saying that it doesn't matter if you're looking at a normal human adult. All right, they all if you're looking at a normal healthy human adult, that's kind of like the universal shape of a human adult. Because as soon as somebody is deformed,
Hmm.
you're like freaked out,
You
or
know it.
it immediately looks deformed,
Hmm.
but at the same time, within that standard of the human body, everyone, it's like, because you're a human and I'm an adult, you're an adult human and I'm an adult human, right?
Hmm.
My husband and everybody that we know, they're all adult humans. But everyone's eye shape is different, everyone's nose
Hmm.
shape is different, everyone's
Hmm.
eyebrows are different. So then that also goes paired with what you were saying about creativity, that even though, or just making images, that even though, because people will use this as an argument against an art education or any kind of an education, really, it's like, oh, too many rules or whatever, it's going to limit you. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, because you have like this physical real life example of how many humans are there in the world, and every single one is a different human,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right? All
Hmm.
because somehow, even though they have the same two eyes, the same nose, the same teeth, the same hair, whatever, somehow they're all still different. Everyone,
Yeah.
even within the groups of people, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
they're all different, which is crazy. So then humanity, and animals as well, obviously, but I'm just using the example of humans. It's an embodiment of those first two, I think, kind of, or like an analog, kind
Hmm.
of a standard
Yep.
and the individuation that kind of separates them a little bit. So I mean, I just want to say that I completely agree, I guess, is what I really
Yeah.
mean, with there being standards. And I mean, diverting a little bit from the standard, you could argue, is indeed individual, maybe an individual taste, but
Hmm.
it's kind of, I just feel like it's still kind of within the purview of that. And okay, I'm a lot more long-winded than you are. But
No, you're good. I agree. I don't think it's an either or thing. I think there are, I think the universal and the individual work together.
yes, yes. And yeah, it's because I feel like often they're kind of pitted against each other, almost like, oh, they're
Yes,
opposites, they can't, oil and water, you can't get them together, but it's like,
definitely.
yeah, it's pretty, I don't know. Even like plants, because I have a bunch of plants, and I'm like looking at, I have them within my field of vision, and it's like, even within the one plant, each one of the leaves of the same plant is different. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, and yet you can recognize the same plant in this state versus you travel to a different state and or a different country, and you can tell, you can identify it as the same plant, but each
Yes.
individual leaf might be a little different. So
Yes.
yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so then going on to the third level, the topmost level rather. So these are levels of goodness, right?
Yeah, so I was
And
working my way up to that ultimate goodness, but we kind of have to just define like what do I mean by goodness? So
yes,
that's
yes.
that's where
Okay.
I was going with that.
Okay. Yes, yes. Okay. So then okay. So I'm gonna summon, kind of not summon, just like, name drop again, Dr. Jordan Peterson, cuz
Yeah.
I've he has these lectures from I don't know when, they're pretty old, of biblical lectures. And
Okay.
he brings it up again occasionally in his more recent work, which I don't listen to as much as the older stuff, because I like the older stuff a lot more. But he talks about the Bible and the Christian religion as kind of like the epitome of a meta of kind of I mean, I'm not even sure how to paraphrase it, but basically this ultimate goodness, basically, and
Okay. Yeah.
how God is kind of like a meta goal,
Hmm.
meta kind of, if you take all of the goals of the stuff that we want to do, like the good things that we want to do, like that
Yeah.
drive, like um, going through hardship, or getting things done in spite of hardship, or coming
Yep.
through the hardship, or being trying to be a really good person, trying to work really hard for your kids, and being a really good wife for your husband, being a really good artist, kind of like, if you take all of those things and they have like this desire for doing whatever it is that you're doing well, it kind of becomes a meta thing, like what they have in common, like the intention that they have in common, all of those things that humans have always wanted to do, and you kind of end up with
Oh, okay.
um that's kind of what he says, that you end up with with God, sort of.
Okay. So you're saying the desire of humans to achieve and to strive for ideals, when you put all that together, then you end up at where God is at. Is that sort of what he says? I'm not super familiar with Jordan Peterson. I know about him, but I haven't listened a lot to him.
Kind of. I mean, and like I said earlier, I'm kind of trying to find my way to what the connection is and why that is important, in just as it pertains to art, but also kind of
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
understand it on its own.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I can tell you from my perspective
yeah, of course, please.
what I
Yes, you're the
believe.
guest. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So God is described as the creator. So naturally, his creation, including man, um, is creative. We're creative as well. The Bible teaches that we were created in God's image. So that means that we have some of the qualities of God. We will never be God, but because that's reserved for him alone. But we have some of the qualities of God, including this attribute of creativity. So I think that's why we're creative people. And so I think everybody has the capacity to be creative. And the way that shows out is varied. Like we just talked about, there's great diversity and variety in his creation. So we're each wired differently. So I think that's why we create. And then, anytime that we can create something good, whether by the standards that sort of govern our art form, or by the ultimate standard, if our artwork reflects something morally good, which is one of the amazing things that art can do, is to show something beautiful, not just aesthetics, not just that stimulates the senses, but art can actually communicate something that is good morally. And for the sake of encouraging society to be better, we can also, with art, describe something ugly and bad, but it can still be good art if we're trying to encourage society to live differently. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of the framework for where I'm coming from. There's a verse at Psalm 50, verse 2, and this was like almost my starting point for this study, because it says that the perfection of beauty, I've been a Christian all my life, and I've never paid attention to this verse very much, but the Bible actually gives its definition of ultimate beauty. And this is what it is. It says the perfection of beauty. Well, I'm paraphrasing that. It says that the perfection of beauty, or ultimate beauty, is Zion. Now, Zion is the city of God, or the place where his throne is. So we're dealing with God's presence on his throne. And so, like I was saying, he's like the source of all goodness and truth. And to the extent that we might reflect some of that, then our work can be beautiful, in my opinion. So anyway, that was kind of my starting point for how I came to this definition of the the radiance and reflection of ultimate goodness. So he is the source, and we, being created in his image, can reflect that, kind of sort of like the moon reflecting the sun, like I mentioned before.
Yes. Yeah, the use of the term reflection, after you were talking about it for a little bit, makes a lot of sense. Because yeah, like I think you said it earlier, we are obviously not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of, there's something about, so because we have the capacity of choosing, that means that sometimes we will choose bad things and other times we will choose good things, depending on the circumstances or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of the times, and I think that is such a default part of the difficulty of life in general, is that a lot of the times choosing the correct thing is way more difficult than choosing the bad thing is easier.
Yes, right. That's a very good observation.
Yeah, and I think
I agree.
I think that perhaps the difference is that, and maybe you can tell me your opinion on this. I perhaps that is something that is not, God doesn't have to struggle with choosing necessarily the right thing or the wrong thing the way that we do. And I'm not saying that not gonna pretend to know God's thought process or something, but it is because we have to make these choices, and choices between good or bad things, or good and better things, or whatever. There's like this constant struggle within of making that decision. And when it comes to making a work of art, making the work that the artist knows is good can be really difficult sometimes. And sometimes this happens to me relatively often, because I know when I'm at a point in the drawing when I can get away with something. Right? Meaning that it's like, oh, I could finish this and post it and people would like it. Like, I have that awareness, and I'm like, but it's not finished. Like, I'm not done. So then it's like, that's difficult. I mean, it's not the same as other many difficult decisions that people have in their daily life or whatever. But it can be, like, just, I don't know, the fact that fork in the road is there is like, oh, I don't know. Well, I don't know. What do you think? Does that make sense? Kind of. What do you think about what this muse?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I struggle with that too. It's like okay, here's something. It's like, okay, I've already spent 100 hours on this painting. I could spend maybe a little bit more and paint that orange a 15th time, and maybe it'll be better the 15th time. If I don't do that, does it mean, am I doing something wrong? Because I'm taking the easy way out or something like that. But then in the meantime, my family needs to buy groceries, and it'd be really nice if I could finish this painting so I could sell it, so we can eat. So which moral dilemma do I go after, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's at all what you were referring to, but I think you have to make priorities. Not that there's ever an excuse for doing something morally wrong, but you have to, when it comes to the art, sometimes you have to give priorities, I think. So
Yeah, I think having it.
but yeah, it's easier to make the wrong decision than the right decision. For sure. So yeah, I don't know what else I want to say about that, but does that, I don't know, did I interpret what you were saying correctly with my answer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just that
Mhm.
you definitely have a different backdrop than I do, because it's like you have a family to feed. And I
Okay,
mean
yeah.
that's of course because I would love to ask you things regarding that, but then that would have to be like a whole ass other episode, or
Hey,
several maybe.
let's do it sometime.
But
That's okay.
yeah, because that's definitely a very interesting subject on its own. But yes. However, if you made the better orange, you could sell it for more money.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah,
So
this
there's
one's actually
that.
good. Yeah, I can sell it for more money. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Hmm.
superior to the other orange. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but okay, so we have broken the hour-long mark, Adam. So I'm gonna start to close it out. So why don't you
Okay.
tell people what you're up to lately? Because you said you mentioned teaching. So do you have classes coming up? Do you have a show coming up? You want anything you want to plug?
Yeah, let's see. I should have written some down. I've got a couple workshops and an online course coming up, but none of them have actually been announced. Probably the best thing to do is go on my website. I'll just give my website, because then they can sign up. You can sign up for my newsletter and get notified of whether I paint new artwork or whether I teach a new class, depending on what you want to receive. I have two
Okay.
different newsletters. So my website is Clague, CLAGUE, fineart.com.
Okay. All right. So the links for that link is going to be in the video description for anyone and everyone interested. So thank you very much, Adam, for agreeing to talk to me today and indulging my muses today. And thank you everyone for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and look at all of the links in the video description, including Adam's website. Thanks again, and see you next time.
All right.